third part of our interactive lecture. See, now what we have learned is our ecosystem health and human well-being are critically linked. Now we know there are ecological tools which can be useful for protection of environment and ecosystem restoration. But at the same time, economic tools, I want to emphasize that yes, there are economic tools which can also be useful for restoration of ecosystems. Generally, economy and environments are being considered as enemies. But here I want to say, no, it's not true. We can continue to develop economically, no doubt. At the same time, we can protect our ecosystems and we can also protect the biodiversity. In fact, we can use certain economic tools for conservation of these biodiversity as well. Hey, look at one of the Scottish philosophers, you know, the Adam Smith. He wrote in his book in Wealth of Nations in 1776. There are three important criteria of wealth of any nation. The first is labor, second is capital goods, and third is the land or natural resources. Look at the first industrial revolution where the Western UK was a major beneficiary and the focus was on labor, mechanization. So first industrial revolution harnessed the factor of labor and mechanization. In the second industrial revolution where USA, USSR, Canada, Australia and Japan, they were the major beneficiary. The focus was on capital goods, infrastructure. Now look at the current third and fourth in industrial revolution where we are focusing on natural resources, that we must conserve our ecosystem resources and we must focus on improving the ecosystem health and environmental health. So our philosopher, he wrote so long back, but all the factors came true. They drive the industrial revolution, no doubt. And now similarly today, if you look at the ecological tools are important for restoration of ecosystem health, but there are market-based instruments as well, which are available, which have been used throughout the world, including India, for conservation of biodiversity and improving the environmental health. One of the example is payment for environmental services. I'll explain a little bit later. Then reduced emission through avoided deforestation and land degradation. Bioprospecting is another example of MBIs, and ecotourism, which we know that how ecosystems and scenic beauties are being used to to make the profit and for economic growth, as well as biodiversity offsetting and wetland banking and so on. These are some of the examples of market-based tools which have been used widely throughout the world. I'll just explain a little bit more about these market-based tools so that you can understand they are not only concept, in fact they are reality. Now look at the market payment for environmental services. If you look at, there is an industries which rely on water, for example, if they're making some kind of product which are water based, but industry do need water. But these water comes from, it's one of the ecosystem services. I told you the groundwater recharge and groundwater purification and so on. And there are watershed regions which give rise to the river flow. And watershed regions are present in upstreams, for example, in some hilly areas, where the natural communities, they are directly dependent on those ecosystems and landscapes in the mountains and so on, which are playing important role as a watershed region. So they continue to change the landscape by converting into agriculture field, or they harvest and cut the forest because they need to survive, and for their livelihood, they are dependent on those forests. So, but at the same time, in the downstream, because of river flow, some industry is surviving. So there is one is user, and another person is who is maintaining those services. User is industry, and the native community in the upstream, they are responsible for continuous flow of those services. If they do not change the landscape, if they conserve the forests and ecosystems, so that the groundwater recharge, watershed regions continue to maintain and remain intact. But they are under pressure of livelihood. So that means the user, industry, should pay for the services so that those communities get some incentive from the industries, because industry is using the benefit of those watershed regions. And if that community, native community, is directly dependent on those landscapes and ecosystems, but for their livelihood, if they get incentives from the industry, then rather than changing the landscape, rather than degrading those forests for their livelihood, they will continue to conserve those landscapes and forests, which are part of watershed region. So payment for environmental services. So user should pay. And the native community who is directly responsible, who is living more closely to those ecosystems, biodiversity rich area, or the who are responsible for maintaining such kind of the natural processes, so that the flow of water and watershed region remain to work continuously. So they should get the benefit. So, but to ensure this looks very easy. The industry should pay and the community should get the benefit. But in reality, it's a what is a 4 to 5 step process, so that we can ensure the industry will pay, because the industry will not easily agree to pay. So we must carry out some ecological studies to demonstrate that this landscape and this kind of biodiversity or forest type or ecosystem type is responsible and most critical for watershed management. Then we must convince the industry that these are the critical factor. If they don't pay those communities, then these critical factors are going to be changed, and sooner or later your industry will also collapse, because the quality and quantity of water will be affected if that watershed region is not protected. Once you convince the industry, then you must also convince the community that how their conservation of those landscapes and ecosystems will benefit them. And once you convince both the party, then develop an institutional framework and the legal policy, so that there is a binding from the industry, so that they pay the community, the native community, continue to pay. And even among the communities, only those communities, because there can be large communities in more than one community who are living in those watershed regions, only those communities which play a significant role in conservation of those areas, only they will get the benefit. So that benefit is incentive is linked with their behavior. So once you do it, then that means you are establishing the payment for environmental services scheme. And such schemes have been successful in many parts of the world where all other conservation efforts have failed. So that means market-based tools can also be converted into a tool for conservation of biodiversity and protection of our ecosystems. And that's how these are the 5 different phases in designing and implementing of payment of environmental services. I told you that we must identify the C-level service and prospective buyer. Prospective buyer here is industry, and C-level services the watershed regions, watershed management, and establish the PSA scheme principle and resolve the technical issues, so that you are very clear that there is no technical glitch. We have scientifically sound studies available, so that we identify the right critical ecosystem structure which should be maintained, and then negotiate and implement the agreements. And that happened only once you develop some kind of the institutional framework and the legal framework for binding from the industry to pay to the community, and institutional framework who will monitor both whether industry is regularly paying the community or not, and whether community is really conserving those ecosystems or not. So there has to be some kind of institutional framework and the criteria and guidelines for payment. And then these 5A process can be implemented, and then consider the opportunity for multiple benefits, so that you can also identify the new users and buyers, and you can also identify the new ecosystem services. Such PSA schemes are very important services. And now look at the REED, where we know that more than 15% of the CO2 emission is because of loss of forest and ecosystems. And UN has identified many ecosystems and forest types in developing countries which are still intact, including India, where if we continue to protect those ecosystems, then CO2 emission can be easily reduced and up to 15% immediately without any efforts. But again, the native communities are dependent on those forest and ecosystems. So that means incentive of conserving those ecosystems for not emitting the CO2 into the environment should go to those native communities who are directly dependent on those ecosystems, who are living in biodiversity rich area close to those forest ecosystems, so that those ecosystems are no more altered now. So such kind of REED Plus programs have already been implemented throughout the world. Now look at the bioprospecting. Bioprospecting is a very systematic approach where we identify the molecules or organisms or natural processes or some ideas or some genes which can play a significant role in different industries like textile industries, pharmaceutical industries, or many other industries. I'll give you example of what is a pharmaceutical industry. I told you that there are many plants which play a significant role in driving the pharmaceutical industries. These plants are known as medicinal plants, and these medicinal plants have medicinal properties because of certain active principle. When I'm saying active principle, I'm referring some chemical compound which is directly responsible for its medicinal property. Once you identify those compounds, and you identify, because see, same species when present in area 1 may produce high quality and high quantity of those medicinally important compounds rather than the population B in different area. So that means you identify those priority communities which are giving more useful compounds and then conserve them. Because see, there are many medicinal plants which local communities use for many small purposes for their daily day-to-day purposes, but here they can play a significant role in global pharmaceutical companies. So we must identify in those wild bioresources which can play a significant role in driving and growth of pharmaceutical industries. Once you identify those in plants, then you can convert into some pharmaceutical product. That has been done using multidisciplinary team where the ecologist, environmental scientist, chemist, pharmaceutical scientists, clinicians, they play a significant role. But how this bioprospecting is practiced really? See, we know, for example, one plant produce anti-cancer compound, and this species A is giving large number of what you say the benefit for cure of cancer. But the same species, because of overexploitation, may be threatened or endangered. So we need to use what is known as either traditional system medicine approach or ecosystem approach or phylogenetic approach. When I'm saying ecosystem approach means because the same plant in certain ecosystems produce high quality and quantity of those compounds, but not in other ecosystems. So that means you try to search for similar kind of ecosystems for the same species or similar species when you practice the phylogenetic approach. Because evolutionary close species or phylogenetically close species are likely to yield similar kind of compound, okay, which are not the same species, but they're more close. So that means one species A is threatened, we must identify and search for the same compound or similar compound in the related species. But the traditional system of medicine is the most important way of what you say practicing bioprospecting also. See, our traditional system, there are many in the plants which are known for their medicinal properties, no doubt, but their active principles are not known. So once you try to identify those active principles from those based on the traditional system of medicine, so what we are doing is we are translating the traditional knowledge into modern system of medicine. So that is another approach. So bioprospecting can help in conservation of those areas where large number of medicinal plants are present, or those species and related species where such compounds, industrially important compounds are present. So this is another way of market-based tool where you encourage the native community to grow those medicinal plants, okay, in their natural habitat, because some of the tribal communities or areas which are in remote areas or mountain areas where such plants are present. So if they grow into the city, they do not produce those medicinal compounds, but in those areas they will, because they are native of those areas. So you allow those plants to grow from the native community and give them benefit. In fact, in certain cases, I think I'll narrate a story where our tribal community, Kani tribe in Kerala, has been awarded as a community patent for the first time, because their knowledge of Kani tribe of certain plants which gave compound of anti-fatigue. So once the industry developed new product anti-fatigue, what you say the formulation, the patent was also granted to the community. So I think throughout the world, this is one of the best example where the patent right has been granted to the traditional community because of traditional knowledge. So that means in the global market, the new product came and the traditional knowledge is translated into the global pharmaceutical companies. At the same time, the local community, tribal communities also got the benefit. And that's the example of social equity, economic equity, and conservation of bioresources. Similarly, we do have nature-based tourism or ecotourism, where the people go and visit the natural ecosystem for scenic beauty, and they pay for visiting such areas. So this is one of the important industries in many different parts of the world. And similarly, biodiversity offset is when you want to go for development in certain area which are biodiversity rich. But since it is biodiversity rich, it's a protected area, you cannot do the development. But for the development of those ideas or developmental plans, those areas are critical. For example, 5-hectare land is very critical for development of some certain industries, because that's very critical area. So, because in biodiversity offsetting, the industry sign some kind of legal document, because they are using 5 hectare of biodiversity hectare, 5 hectare of biodiversity rich area, then they are bound to develop more than 5 hectare land of the same biodiversity rich area, same community in the related areas which are degraded and contaminated. And if they are failed to do it, then their industry can be closed. So such kind of legal binding have led to what you say the development as well as the conservation go in hand. So such ideas do exist, and they are not theoretical. They have been implemented in different parts of the world. Similarly, in case of forest, but in case of wetland also, we do have, you want to develop industry in close to the river where wetlands are present or marshy areas are present. But if you want to use, but not in all the cases, such kind of permission is granted. Only in critical, only in very unavoidable circumstances, such kind of permissions are granted. So that if you use the wetlands of 2 hectare land, for example, then you have to, the preserve, create or enhance more than 2 hectare land in the same area of wetlands. So if we do it, only then it will be allowed. So such ideas, market-based tools, have been used for conservation of ecosystems, for preservation of biodiversity, and for sustainable development, where the economy and ecology go in hand, where the economic development as well as the biodiversity protection and environmental protection goes in hand. So the important ideas are market-based tools on instruments promote and enhance biodiversity conservation. Economic tools such as MBIs serve as a critical link to maintain the harmony among environment, society, and economy, because the society also get the benefit. I told you example of Kani tribe who got the community patent. Similarly, and the last, MBI tools ensure sustainable industries and social equity. So these are the important ideas. So market or economy are not against environment, and environment is not against economy. They can go hand in hand if we use the right institutional framework, if we develop the good mechanisms, and if we develop the legal bindings on both the part, then the industry can grow and environment can also remain protected. Now, the time for quiz 3.